Well, I guess I shouldn't be really surprised at this point, but the 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 supposed I don't know tariffs on a specific company now are becoming a thing, and now like a new round of tariffs on the EU. Because originally, what he wanted to do, Trump wanted to do 50% tariffs on the EU because of I don't know reasons. We'll call it reasons. We'll just call it reasons. Sure. I think that's a good enough, that's a fair enough assessment for Trump here. And now he's like trying to also do the same things on just on a company, which I'm not really sure. Like, what's the legal precedence for this? Not that it really matters, I guess, because like everything Trump does is basically illegal. So, eh? But what do we got? What do we got? Manufacturing iPhones in the US could increase prices by 90%, which is a great fucking point. Same thing I've been constantly saying that, hey, if you just bring shit back to the US forehead, which is fine and all, like, okay, cool. You know what's gonna happen to the fucking, like, sort of domestic prices for these fucking goddamn products? They're gonna shoot through the fucking roof. Why? Because of the simple fact that, whoa, crazy. Guess what? American products made by American workers had to get paid more because American wages are higher than those in the comparison to the global south. Like, if you look at how much does your average fucking Chinese manufacturing worker get paid? Probably not as much as your average fucking US manufacturing union worker. Even though, like, all the China simps will say, like, oh, what do you mean, dude? Like, manufacturing in China is, heckin' epic in poggers, and they get paid really, really well. Yeah, sure. I don't doubt the fact that they probably do get paid well. The problem is in comparison to probably the amount that American workers would get paid because of the better union protections that they have. Because, like, honestly, yeah, sure, China has their quote unquote state union, but that shit's completely controlled by the fucking state. As far as I'm fucking concerned, it's not really going to represent the interests of the worker all that much, because guess what? They are first and foremost representatives of the state. So don't miss me with that fucking bullshit. Okay, get the fuck out of here. But like I said before, one of the reasons why the tariffs are as incredibly stupid as they are is simply just due to the fact that, hey, guess what'll fucking happen? Like, pretty much instant fucking taneously. A lot of companies are probably going to do anything possible in order to try to get around them, first and foremost, obviously. And also, like, they're not going to be effective in bringing back manufacturing, because so far that has already been fucking proven pretty much perfectly. I'll be honest. They've not really done anything in order to bring back manufacturing. In fact, they've been a detriment to manufacturing work, to manufacturing jobs. In fact, like, I mean, just like in Trump's first term, guess where he also lost a bunch of jobs? In the manufacturing sector. Whoa! It turns out if you don't have the incentive structures, like Trump was fucking ragging on about the Chips Act. Oh, like Biden was just like giving the money for no reason. Well, yeah, you kind of have to give them the money, because guess what? Why the fuck would the corporations want to come back to the U.S. in order to have manufacturing jobs in the U.S.? Because guess what's gonna fucking happen? Whoa, they're not gonna want to pay the higher prices that they would have to pay U.S. workers because they have better labor protections. Well, what a crazy, ridiculous concept. But I don't know. Trump doesn't understand what labor protections means. I mean, he tried to do anything to like use ICE in order to export Polish migrants who were working on his real estate ventures. So I don't like Trump. Not really the biggest not the biggest guy who's really into, let's say, let's say worker protections. Let's just say that. So as a byproduct of the fact that American workers get paid better, they have more benefits, and besides just all the benefits, they get paid more and have better working conditions in comparison to that of China. Whoa, crazy. You have to pay more for them, which is why the CHIPS Act, like I said before, a part of it was they also were subsidizing the companies to bring back manufacturing in America. And guess what? As a result, the CHIPS Act was successful in bringing back some manufacturing back to America. For like the first, what? For like the first time in like 40 years or something, an American president was positive in terms of manufacturing job numbers, which is something that has not happened in, like I said, 40 fucking years. But does Trump understand that? No, because he's a fucking idiot. So yeah, raising up the price of an iPhone 16 Pro from $11.99 to approximately $22.78. Apple won't pay the cost of Trump's threatened tariffs. Consumers will be forced to. That's how tariff works, no matter how Trump says. So obviously, I guess like an idiot who seemingly has no idea of how the economy works. But that's Donald Trump for you. He has no idea how anything works, or how anything works at all, because he's a doddering old man baby. The companies were never going to fucking pay the tariffs. That's not how that works. It's just simply put, stupid, bad economic policy. It's incredibly misinformed. It's like it's a childlike interpretation for as to how anything fucking works. The fact that this moron thought this was going to pan out in any way that he thought it was going to pan out besides this way is just idiotic. But what else? What is he saying? I have long informed Tim Cook of Apple that I expect their iPhones that will be sold in the United States of America will be manufactured and built in the United States, not India or any place else. If that is not the case, a tariff of at least 25% must be paid by Apple to the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He's been saying thank you for your attention to this matter quite a bit. He didn't say you. He said you're there. Whatever. Old man doddering aside. Can you even, do this to a company? Is this something that is possible? Funny if it does go through somehow. But you can't do this. This is just not how economic policy works. I've already talked about this constantly before. This is just not how any of this works. This is really fucking dumb and stupid. Do I need to outline for how many different fucking reasons? Do we need to outline the amount of reasons why this is fucking dumb? First off, it's not the companies that pay the fucking not the companies. It is the company that pays the fucking goddamn tariff, right? But they will often offload that fucking cost onto consumers. They do this every single time. The company does not pay the government the fucking goddamn tariff. That's also not how that works. So, what? I think that's the part of this that's probably tripping me up the most is the fact that he thinks that it's the company which pays the tariff. No. Just no. No. Just no. It's not the company that pays the money itself doesn't go to the fucking the coffers of the US. I know where this sort of mentality is coming from Trump. It's because he thinks it's like the 1880s still, right? His autistic fixation with William McKinley is what's leading him to having really idiotic economic policy. It's the tariffs do not go to the U.S. Treasury. That's not how that works. How would that even work? Would would the amount generated from the tariffs become a treasury bond or something? I'm just trying to think about this just logistically with how how I understand how the sort of broader U.S. economy works. Would it become a treasury bond that Apple is paying for or something, and that's how the fucking tariff is supposed to be paid. I think, broadly speaking, my confusion here is understood. Because it doesn't make any fucking sense in, like, any sense of the imagination for as to how, like, tariffs are supposed to work. But, I don't know. Trump thinks, like, magically, well, you know, the company's the one that pays the tariffs, so therefore it's the government that gets the tariff costs. It's like, but that's not who gets that. Trump, that's not how that works. It's not the government that's getting money from the tariffs. It's the corporation that has to pay for the fucking tariff, right? And that gets furloughed onto the customer. Like, the government there is no say, like, and the government gets, like, basically nothing out of this, but he doesn't get it. He doesn't know. Doddering old man syndrome. Like, what else is there to say? But, not only is he doing this with Tim Cook with Apple, where he's trying to, like, slap a tariff on a corporation, he's also redoing his original proposal of the EU paying their 50% tariff, right? This is the original proposal. So this is why he's mad about it. He's threatening the 50% tariffs because Greenland is signing a mineral deal with the EU. Hey, Trump, I wonder why. Okay, let's think laterally for, like, 3 seconds. Very difficult for a Trump supporter to do, I know. Let's think for, like, laterally for, like, literally 3 seconds. Just why? Why might Greenland be trying to get a mineral deal with the European Union over the United States? Maybe because the European Union is not trying to threaten to annex them constantly. I don't know. I don't know. I might be being a bit of a lip cuck here. I might be kind of cucked and liberal here, but maybe, just maybe, they don't want to deal with any of Trump's bullshit because they've been constantly getting threatened of being annexed. But what do we have here? The European Union, which is formed for the primary purpose of taking advantage of the United States on trade, has been very difficult to deal with. Okay. The United States had a hand to play in the forming of the European Union. Why was the European Union formed? A funny little thing. Okay, it's just a little thing called World War II. Yeah, just a funny little thing called World War II is what happened. And that was why the European Union was formed. For the express purpose of, well, not only being able as a counterweight to the Warsaw Pact, yes, the Marshall Plan, thank you, Boy Meets Minnie, but also as a way to not have World War II happen again, to not have any more big wars in Europe, because 2 big ones happened in Europe in the early 20th century. Radical idea, I know. Their powerful trade barriers, fat taxes, ridiculous corporate penalties, non-monetary trade barriers, monetary manipulations, unfair and unjustified lawsuits against American companies, and more have led to a trade deficit with the U.S. of more than $250 billion a year, a number which is totally unacceptable. Okay. I don't know how many times this needs to be explained. There's not a problem with having a trade deficit. Who cares if you have a trade deficit, alright? That doesn't fucking matter. The US is the strongest economy on the planet. Money just exists. You are the strongest economy in the fucking world. Yet you think a $250 billion trade deficit means you're getting fucking robbed. Make it make sense. It's just fucking stupid. It's very dumb. And the reason why, guess what? The US can very, very easily afford to have trade deficits with fucking goddamn countries is because it is very useful as the global reserve currency, which something, because this is an actual point of strength of the United States of America, which Trump for some reason will never fucking understand. This is an actual point of strength for the United States. You guys are the global reserve currency, okay? If I do recall correctly, wasn't there like a bad turnout for the bond yields? Which is why this confidence, I guess, is now being shaken in the fucking goddamn bond, in the I guess the status of the U.S. dollar being the global reserve currency. That's a whole other fucking story, okay? But the reason why the fucking goddamn United States, why the dollar is the fucking goddamn global reserve currency, is because the U.S. economy is seen as, broadly speaking, very, very reliable. It's a reliable, stable economy that, unless you have a complete fucking moron, is generally not very prone to having a lot of issues in terms of economic stability. That is why, very generally speaking, a lot of countries tend to have a lot of reserves of US dollar, because guess what? That US dollar is always going to be very useful in terms of, trading negotiations. Why do you think Japan is one of the biggest fucking holders of US fucking currency? Because it's really useful for trade purposes in the sort of polities that it finds itself in. That's why. But he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand that. He doesn't get it. He just doesn't know. I don't even it's one of those things that's just so fucking ridiculously fucking stupid, dude. But that's really cool. Oh god.
Our discussions with them are going nowhere. Therefore, I am recommending a straight 50% tariff on the European Union starting on June 1st, 2025. There is no tariff if the product is built or manufactured in the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Okay, so what? This is the same thing he did before when the initial tariff fiasco happened. And as a result, obviously that didn't go anywhere. There was a global 10% tariffs that he did on everyone else, as well as all of the, I guess besides just the global 10% tariffs, there was the Chinese tariffs, of which have been backed off now. There's a 10% tariffs, all the reciprocal tariffs, which have been seemingly backed off from now, and whatever else bullshit is happening. But yeah, I think that's really about it, right? So, why is this silly? I don't know. Do Americans understand, okay, do they understand why Europeans not tend to buy a lot of their products? Well, first off, because a lot of American products are just not very well regulated and do not meet to the standards of European regulations. Sucks to suck? Sucks to suck. Whatever. There was also the, besides the European regulations that they don't meet up, I know he also complains about the fact that,
we import so many more European cars, but Europeans, they never import our cars. Why is that?
Because they don't want your cars. I don't know, man. They don't want them. They prefer local brands typically. That's why. So it's just like what do you want from them? Sorry. I know that a lot of American car manufacturers very often tend to get subsidies because of, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what the best term is. Their own inadequacies. Because, American cars, typically speaking, don't tend to compete well in a lot of other markets. Besides the Canadian market, but that's, the only one. That's because they're, right next to each other and because of other, extenuating circumstances and trade deals, blah, 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 blah. There's reasonings for that, which makes sense. But broadly speaking, a lot of the reasons for as to why a lot of American vehicles don't tend to perform as well in other markets is because they're too big, generally speaking, for a lot of the smaller streets, and they do not gel very well with a lot of other places, sort of, I guess, transportation networks. In the European Union, in Europe especially, a lot more use of public transit, trains, buses, bikes, walking, and the streets themselves tend to be very small, much smaller, and made out of like older cobblestone as well. For the aesthetic, basically. Uh, Heavy American cars do not gel very well with that. They don't. Not really. They tend to get very damaged very easily, and whoa, it's a complete shit show as a result. Whoa, who would have thought such a thing could be possible? And so, as a result, Europeans do not tend to buy do not tend to buy a lot of American cars. That's why you don't see them very often in Europe. Simply put. Another thing is also because of the fact that due to a lot of poor American regulations, especially with I think specifically it's with human growth hormone. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Boy Meets Mini, but a lot of American food products don't tend to do as well in European markets, or don't tend to get into European markets as much, is because of, well, poor regulations. Because factory farms have like a bunch of animals stuck in there with like hopped up on like every fucking drug. So it's because they have cleaner food and smaller cars. That's why they don't tend to do as well. That's why. Yeah, just like you're saying. Yeah, Europeans have cleaner food. Yep, most of the world does, TBH. Exactly. Well, like, what's like, like the meme, right, of all the like American TikTokers, for example, going around to like different locations, McDonald's, and just seeing the like quality of food of like in like Japan or like Korea or in Europe, and there's like, holy shit, their McDonald's is like way better than ours. Our McDonald's is complete crap in comparison. Holy crap. That is crazy. And that's like basically a meme that happens. Yeah, from what I understand, Middle Eastern McDonald's is also really, really good. So, like, nice meme. Nice meme, dude. Let's see. There's a article that I also pulled up about this. I closed that damn tab by accident. There we go. Article. So Trump threatens the EU with a 50% tariff, like he did initially. Was it a 25? I don't remember. There's been so much crap that's been happening that I don't remember if it's been a 50% tariff at this point. Was it 50% tariff that was initially proposed, or was it like 25% initially with the EU, and then the reciprocal stuff happened, so the numbers changed, and then obviously the reciprocal tariffs didn't happen, so then something else got changed, or like he increased it to 50% initially. I don't know. There's been so much fucking crap happening that I just forget constantly, like, what the hell is going on. 50% tariff, Apple and other smartphone makers with 25%. Trump told tech giant this morning to reshore iPhone production or to be taxed. Again, like, I don't know. So much is happening because of this strat, flood the zone. Well, you mean Steve Bannon's strat, because Donald Trump definitely did not come up with this shit. He didn't come up with that. But what do we have here? Let's just read the fucking article. Why not? U.S. President Donald Trump cranked up his trade threats on Friday, recommending 50% tariffs on the European Union and 25% tariff to be imposed on Apple and other smartphone makers. Yeah, we just talked about earlier why just doing the 25% tariff on smartphone makers is, well, really dumb. First off, like, he thinks that the corporation pays the tariff to like the U.S. Treasury as like a bond or something. Well, I guess that's like how it would be formed, but in reality, that's not actually how it would work. Whatever, it's silly, and it's typically, like, yes, the company is the one who pays the tariff, but the tariff is always going to get offloaded on the consumer. But Trump wants the companies to eat the tariffs, like they did with Walmart. They were just like, no, we're not doing that. This is very dumb and silly, and that ended up not working out because Walmart was like trying to say to Trump, like, can you please get rid of the tariffs? Because the tariffs are really dumb and stupid, and we don't like them. Can you please stop them? Can you please, for the love of all that is good and holy, stop the tariffs? And he's like, no, I don't want to stop the tariffs. I love tariffs. They're my favorite thing on the planet. They're so good and heckin' wholesome and the best thing ever around. They're so good. I love tariffs. And I don't know. Who knows what the hell is even going on there? The idea that there's supposed to be like what tariffs on a corporation, I still don't really understand how that's exactly going to work out. Like, country, that's one thing. On a corporation, I still don't really get it. I don't get it. Trump made the comments about the EU and Apple this morning on social media and elaborated on them this afternoon in the White House. He recommended a 50% tariff on the European Union to begin on June 1st, which would result in stiff levies on luxury items, pharmaceuticals, and other goods produced by European manufacturers. Oh, so it's not only on... Oh, yeah, it's just... Oh, talk about the European tariffs. Okay. Not the... I was confusing that with the smartphones for a second. I was about to say, like, what smartphones are made in the EU? What the fuck? No, it's like, probably like what? Like watches, foodstuffs, like... What else gets made in Europe besides... What, there's like... The meme is like Swiss watches, I don't know, like fucking German cars, probably cars from... Are there French cars that really get sold in the United States? I don't think so, right? There's cars from Britain that get sold in the United States. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything else besides those things. The European Commission declined to comment, saying it would wait for a phone call between the European Trade Chief Marcos Sefcovic and his U.S. counterpart Jameson Greer, which took place this morning. And all the British cars are owned by companies in other countries. Well, you know, that's all a fucking complete shit show in itself, obviously. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said during an earlier interview on Fox News that he hopes the president's threat will light a fire under the EU in negotiations with Washington. Okay. Because I'm trying to understand what exactly is being said here. So this is all like another ploy? This is all another ploy to get the Europeans to the table for the 90 deals, the so many deals that we're making with so many different countries or something? Is this the idea? Is that all we're doing?
There's so many deals. We're making so many deals. All the deals. So many deals. We love making deals, don't we, folks?
Even though there's like... It's just not the case. There isn't 90 deals being made or something. I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know. I'm confused. Generally speaking, I'm very, very, very confused as to what the fuck is going on with this shit. Trump also threatened to impose a 25% tariff on Apple for any iPhone sold but not manufactured in the U.S. Okay. We explained this before. If something gets manufactured in the U.S., it's naturally going to be more expensive because guess what? Wages have to be, like, there's more that gets paid more in wages for American workers in comparison to workers from foreign countries. But Trump doesn't get that. He doesn't understand that. He still doesn't get that. So between like what? You're like the example I gave earlier. You're like union labor, sort of good old blue collar American worker. That dude is definitely getting paid a lot more because he has more worker protections in comparison to those other countries, right? In comparison to China or probably like Vietnam or I don't know, like Bangladesh or Laos or whatever kind of a deal. Way more fucking goddamn protections there in comparison. So I don't know, to just say it's like, oh yeah, dude, if you're gonna not pay the tariff if you just forehead do business with the U.S. It's just like that's not how that works, man. That's just why would they want to do business in the U.S. when they know it's more expensive to pay for shit in the fucking U.S. They're not gonna do it. It's really fucking silly. It's super super silly. So everything is just gonna get passed on to the consumer because, duh, obviously it's gonna get passed on the consumer instead because, again, if we're just thinking about it like logistically for like 3 fucking seconds, okay, the tariff will get paid by the company. They're gonna raise their prices to make up for the loss of profit. Obviously, duh, it's a corporation. They're not people. They just want to make money. That's their only purpose in life. And they're also like, I don't even know how many times I've said this before. If you're doing manufacturing in the US, more money is going to have to be paid for parts because you also have to ship in a bunch of different parts. Those are probably also going to be tariffed from other countries because Trump doesn't understand how economics works. So you have to pay more for the raw materials in order to manufacture them in the US, right? Okay. You have to pay more for American workers. So guess what? That's another expense that the corporation is going to sort of levy and raise on the consumer. Like I said before, the reason why globalization is the way that it is and it created as many cheap products as it did for the US is because they don't have to pay as much money for the workforces that they are exploiting in other countries because they can exploit, worse labor regulations in, well, the places like China, Vietnam, Laos, not Japan, probably not Japan, and other like Southeast Asian countries. Or Bangladesh. I was going to say Bangladesh. They have worse worker protections there. Their economies are not as strong. Well, not so much with China, but that's a little bit of a different story. China has a bunch of deals with the U.S. and shit like that. That's why that sort of like dynamic exists. And as a result, products are very cheap as products are very very cheap as a byproduct of these policies. The outsourcing of manufacturing done during the 80s. Super super obvious, right? The thing is, even if the manufacturing were to start back in the U.S., okay, sure. Apple capitulates and starts to bring back a bunch of manufacturing. Are the facilities even set up in the U.S. in order to be able to start manufacturing? Are there like chip manufacturing sites for these smartphones? Well, thanks to the Chips Act, yes, but Trump wants to get rid of it. Whatever. So is there chip manufacturing for this? What about like the coverings of the smartphones? Because guess what? It's a bunch of different like corporations and a bunch of other factories that tend to like build each individual part, and then they get shipped over to Apple or like whatever factory is at Apple, and then they get assembled there at the Apple factory. That's how that works, generally speaking. I'm not 100% certain if that's how Apple does it, if they do it through like third-party like suppliers or subsidiaries, or if they have like their own Apple-owned like factories or something that make like each individual part or something, and they bring it into a central location, or if it's done in like one all sort of area. I have no idea how the fuck Apple manufactures their fucking phones. Who the hell cares? So you have to ask yourself this question. Are all these facilities to do this manufacturing set up in the US? No. So, crazy. It makes perfect sense that the corporations are going to be like, well, okay, for the time being, we're going to have to manufacture somewhere else that isn't China to avoid some of these tariffs, and just have like some other tariffs come in for like Instead of like 145% tariff, we're going to have like a 10% tariff. I think that's how much he levied on India. Whatever. Let's just assume it's a 10% tariff. Sure. The there's the 10% tariff instead of the 145% tariff, so they're going to manufacture somewhere else because the facilities are currently they're just not there in the U.S. They're not there. They're not there. Simply put, it's just silly and ridiculous. I don't know how many times this has to be explained to Trump supporters, but they'll never just seem to get it. I don't understand. I don't get it. Trump also threatened to impose a 25% tariff on Apple for any iPhones sold but not manufactured in the U.S. I believe that's where I was, yes. And yeah, why is this really stupid? Should be fairly obvious. The facilities in order to manufacture iPhones in the U.S. are just non-existent. They don't exist. They're not there yet. Like, a bunch of other, like, I don't know, streamers with, like, merch said, like, in the past, I know this was, like, a small segment that I did with, like, about, like, Cutie Cinderella, where she was, like, has her own business saying, like, dude, I would like to order from U.S. manufacturers if you can tell me which ones those guys are, because they don't exist. They're not here. So, there's that problem. There's also the idea that if, okay, let's say hypothetically, all the facilities do get made in the U.S. Okay, let's say, all of a sudden, like Factorio, okay? I love using Factorio because for some reason Trump likes to think that this is like Factorio, where you can put down yo inserters and put down yo furnaces like so, and then all of a sudden just be like, I have now created factory. It is time to begin U.S. manufacturing boom. Not how that works, but let's say, okay, let's pretend that this is the case. Yeah, you copy-paste factory, there you go. That's how Trump seems to think that it works, okay? Okay, let's pretend this exists, okay? That he managed to go into his Factorio save, copy and paste a bunch of shit from there, and just be like, okay, bop, 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 bop.
Oh, would you look at that, folks? I made a bunch of factories ready for the great American worker to go in there and go into the furnaces and start being able to do that great, great work making iPhones, folks.
Okay, let's say that is the case. The price of the iPhone is still going to raise up significantly anyways, because American workers get paid better. They have better coverage. They have more rights. Why do you think a bunch of U.S. corporations during the 80s decided to be like, okay, we're going to move all of our manufacturing from the U.S. to China? Because as a byproduct of the globalized economy, or rather I would just say the broader global south, because of globalization, you know. And yes, thank you, Nixon.
Thank you, Nixon. Very cool. I love you, Nixon. You're one of my favorites. Watergate was not epic from what I understand, but, you know, would love to not have that.
Yes, because Nixon started going after the unions in the United States. It started under Nixon. It really ramped up during Reagan, because with the unions not having any more power, it makes it such that the corporations are able to, war against the unions. Exactly. Rochi? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Reagan and Nixon, right? Going after the workers' rights, it makes it such that the corporations have a lot more power. And so, it is a lot easier to, sort of just, as a byproduct, be able to have, like, trade deals and a bunch of different sort of globalization policies that moved all the manufacturing. Because, you know, the U.S. used to be a manufacturing hub. Obviously, as a part of it is also due to the transitioning economy, from transitioning from more manufacturing to a lot more tech and service work, as another byproduct of the U.S. sort of being in the lead in terms of the science race as a result of the Cold War. That's a completely different other point. I'm mostly going to be talking here about sort of trade policy here. And, well, unions. Yeah, war economy to science. Yeah, like you're saying, I'm just going to say Rochi. Rochi. Like Master Roshi, but Rochi. There you go. So from like to the sort of like science tech service economy, well, you don't need as much manufacturing for that. You can just outsource that a lot more. You can outsource that more to the global south. So that's what a bunch of companies and corporations ended up doing. And the US, because of how big because of how like big and how strong the US economy is, you guys can easily afford to import a bunch of stuff. This is also a byproduct of the U.S. also being the global trade, the global reserve currency as well. It is very valuable for a lot of these countries, especially in the global South, to be able to trade in U.S. dollars because their currency is not as valuable in comparison to the U.S. currency. So if they can do all the manufacturing and all the sort of like more rudimentary export work, sort of export work jobs, for lack of a better term, and get U.S. dollars out of it, that's a great trade for those guys, right? Which is why, like, I often complain, like, it's not that big of a deal for the U.S. to really have a trade deficit with a lot of countries because guess what? If if the US has a trade deficit, obviously, with those countries, it means that those countries are, getting a lot of US dollars, right? And with those US dollars, they can use that in order to, as leverage to do other trade deals with other countries, for example, because of just how powerful and how stable and how strong the US dollar is. So between globalization, the active war on trade unions and the unions in general, did I say globalization? The transitions to the different economy, there's a lot of complicated macroeconomic and socioeconomic reasons for as to why this is broadly speaking sort of the case. To just do forehead tariffs and just say like,
just bring it back to the US. Just like, if you just bring it back, well, there's not going to be any problems.
That just doesn't work. It's stupid. Not to mention there's not even any of the factories in place here. Also, like, you have to like also ask yourself this question, okay? Another question you should ask yourself here. This was I forget the name of the author, but because this is just a thing because the one of the thing is like one of the things is basically like the U.S. just kind of thinks like or not the U.S. Trump just kind of thinks like this. He thinks that like people will want to slave away in front of a 2,000-degree blast furnace for 8 hours a day every day. Will Americans even want to do this kind of work? Do you really think? I want you to ask yourself for 3 seconds, because he's already said this in speeches, talking about like,
oh, you look at these coal miners, they love going into the mines. They love going into the mines.
Do you really think that a lot of these like a lot of Trump supporters, do you really believe that they're gonna want to get rid of their cushy office jobs and move from those cushy office jobs to do hard back-breaking manufacturing labor? I don't think so. Which is why I just don't think this is gonna work out. Like it's just like as like the simple TLDR about like all of the like ridiculous reasons for as to why this is it's just not gonna work, simply put. And yeah, like you said, Boy Meets Mini, isn't Canada basically like that too, although you have a lot of industry? For us, it's a little different. We have a lot more like natural resources to use. So we have a natural sort of like, we have the tar sands. We also have a lot of nickel mines, right? We also have our big hydroelectric. We have our big hydroelectric works as well, Niagara Falls and shit like that, and in Quebec as well as hydroelectric, oil, the nickel mines, as well as big nuclear power plants. Toronto has a huge nuclear power plant as well. So Canada has a lot of natural resources that we are able to leverage in comparison to the US, which is why we still kind of have quite a lot of our own sort of manufacturing base broadly speaking, that still exists within Canada, but it's only in sort of like, it's in very specific sectors. Let's just keep going. Later extending that threat to other smartphone makers, including Samsung. He's also doing it to Samsung. That's really funny. More than 60 million phones are sold in the US annually, but the country has no smartphone manufacturing. Where does Samsung manufacture all of their phones? I assume probably in the Southeast Asia, right? Probably Vietnam, maybe like Laos, Cambodia, places like that. Probably maybe India is probably where Samsung is doing the same thing. Trump did not give a time frame for his warning to Apple.
I have long informed Tim Cook of Apple that I expect their iPhones that will be sold in the United States of America will be manufactured and built in the United States, not India or any place else,
Trump said in a post on Truth Social.
If that is not the case, a tariff of at least 25% must be paid by Apple to the US.
I already outlined why this is fucking stupid. Who's gonna want to work the factories? The factories aren't there. Globalization, trade unions, non-existent. That's why a bunch of corporations decided to up and leave. All the trade deals that, broadly speaking, existed that he tore up and just put back in, basically, with his own coat of varnish in it. Wall Street's major indices have largely recovered since dropping at the open, roiled by Trump's renewed trade threats after weeks of de-escalation provided some reprieve. U.S. manufactured iPhones, a fairy tale. I guess as an analyst. The White House has been in negotiations with numerous countries over trade issues, but progress has been unsteady. Trump's aggressive tariffs in April, which would have raised the rate consumers and businesses would have paid for imported goods by roughly 25%, sparked a sell-off in U.S. assets, including stocks, the dollar, and treasury bonds. Markets have since rebounded. If I recall correctly, let's take a look at them. Let's start with the S&P 500. S&P 500. So it went down, went back up a little bit, but overall it is down. Take a look at the 5-day. Yeah, here we go. This is much better. So this was his stupid announcement. Yep. Went down. We got the S&P 500, the Dow Jones. It also went down in the 5-day. Keep in mind, if we look at the sort of overall the 6-month, it's still down from the past 6 months. So that's cool. Dude, look at the dip. Now, this was in April during the first initial bullshit, and now it's going down. Guys, listen, dude. If there's one thing that markets like more than anything, it's uncertainty. Am I right, fellas? They love uncertainty. So what? It's the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, and what's the other third one? I always forget the other fucking third one. S&P, Dow Jones, and what's the third indice? I don't remember. Man, I'm blanking on the name right now. But the reason why he ended up backing off from the initial sort of aggressive tariff attack, I guess for lack of a better term, is because every country was starting to sell treasury bonds, and Japan, who is the biggest holder of U.S. treasury bonds, is basically, they sold off a ton of treasury bonds. And I think this was a sort of recent... This was a sort of recent thing that happened. I think it was about... was it about 2 days ago? Or was it yesterday? I don't remember. The 20-year yield came back for the treasury bonds, and I think it went up, which caused more instability in the economy. And a lot of the reason for as to why the 20-year yields were not going well was because of the fact that, well, a lot of Trump's belligerence. So, that's cool. Sparked the sell-off. It is not clear if Trump can levy a tariff on an individual company. Apple did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. After Trump's levies on China rose to more than 100% in early April, the White House backed off due to market turmoil, granting exclusions from steep tariffs on smartphones and some other electronics imported largely from China in a break for Apple and other tech firms that rely on imported products. Yeah, so he tried to do an exemption, and then he ended up negotiating with Xi Jinping, saying like, okay, we'll stop, but there's like still the 30% tariff that's in place instead of the 145% tariff. It's a complete shit show, like I've said before. Yeah, we took a look at his tweet. He might, here's the thing with this Roshi. It could be a bluff. It could not be a bluff. Who knows? We are dealing with a mad king at the moment who will just do anything. He'll just do it because he wants to do it. Fuck it. Who cares? And since he doesn't have, other, voices in the room saying, hey, stop. You need to stop. You need to quit that. He's just surrounded by sycophants, so he's just going to do whatever he wants, right? Yeah, unfortunately, as much as they're trying to go after the judiciary right now, so yeah, that's the only thing that is, I guess, essentially protecting you guys at the moment is the judiciary. But they're trying their hardest to get around that. But that's a different topic I've talked about before. David Ives, an analyst with wealth management firm Wedbush Securities, wrote in a note to investors that he doesn't see iPhone production moving to the U.S. in the near term, given the upside-down cost model and the Herculean-like supply chain logistics needed for such an initiative. Whoa, crazy. A U.S.-manufactured iPhone would cost roughly $3,500 U.S. Damn! And it would take about 5 to 10 years to shift production 5 to 10 years to shift production over to the U.S. I've estimated. Hey, whoa! All the stuff that I've talked about in this whole segment. Oh, it's literally right there. Yeah, you have to literally shift the stuff over from China over to the U.S. over to the other place. It's a complete shit show. You have to get the people into the factories. You got to do all the other stuff. There's a lot of shit. So, we believe the concept of Apple producing iPhones in the US is a fairy tale that is not feasible. Yeah, just the idea that it's going to happen is just, it's silly. It's just ridiculous. And also, I did a segment on the big beautiful bill yesterday. I was actually going to add an addendum to that, but I'm going to do that after I'm done with this, because there is an addendum that I do want to add to that. But Apple reportedly aims to make most of its iPhones sold in the United States at factories in India by the end of 2026, and is speeding up those plans to navigate potentially higher tariffs in China, its main manufacturing base. Apple is positioning India as an alternative manufacturing base amid Trump's tariffs on China, which have raised supply chain concerns in fears of higher iPhone prices. Yeah, because it makes sense, right? Whoa, they don't want to pay the fucking tariffs, so they're just going to try to get around them for the time being because they know, whoa, crazy, that, hey, that the current facilities are just not set up in the U.S., right? They're not there yet, and no way, shocker, shocker, since the manufacturing currently is not there at the moment, they have to produce it somewhere else where the manufacturing is available, where they probably do have factories, and then they ship them into the U.S. Shocker, I know, because nothing is set up there. There are no current American manufacturers of iPhones in the US because they all got moved over. But whatever. And yeah, like I've mentioned before, I think in this exact segment, Roshi, the literal like you're talking about the Chips and Science Act, right? Biden brought back a bunch of chip manufacturing from Taiwan into the U.S. And how did he do it? Well, he did a lot of subsidization for the different companies, for like Nvidia and stuff like that, to be like, hey, can you like build some factories here, manufacture in order to do like some manufacturing here of chips, because it's a security concern. Because Taiwan is like the main producer of chips in the world. I think they produce like 70+% of them, and they're right next to China, and China keeps constantly threatening them with annexation. So, well, you know, makes sense to like, well, Jack, I think we need to start making some chips here, Jack. The iPhone maker said most of its smartphones sold in the U.S. would originate from India in the June quarter. Because again, let's be honest here, the manufacturing is just not there. It's not there yet, but you know. And no, the materials would have to be imported in as well. So the tariffs also are affecting that. So, okay, overall conclusion to all of this. As always, this tariff shit is stupid. It's really dumb for God knows how many reasons. Trump still does not understand how a trade deficit works. He still doesn't get that. He still doesn't understand the sort of economic effects of the trade what the tariffs are going to do. It's not going to bring back manufacturing immediately. It would have to take years. And here's the thing with tariffs. Tariffs can work, okay? I'm not saying that tariffs are a bad policy. They can work. The problem is with just doing blanket tariffs and nothing else. Broadly speaking, if you just do the tariffs forehead without thinking, and you don't do what Biden did, like with the CHIPS Act and subsidizing a bunch of manufacturing in order to bring back all of those jobs, to bring back the factories, they're not going to do it because it'd be more expensive to do it in the U.S. For all the reasons that I've outlined before. The workers are more expensive. They have more rights. They have better union protections. They have they'll want to be paid more to do this work. There is a whole myriad of reasons for us to, broadly speaking, why all of these jobs were exported out of the U.S. Let's be honest here. But Trump doesn't get it. And it's from that one excerpt from that one book where Trump literally said, like, well, this is just how I think. And I don't know if it's the Bob Woodworth book. I don't think it's the Bob Woodworth book. I've gone over it on stream before. I forget where I got it. Like, I have to find the excerpt because it's really funny. Like, what is it? If I were to type Trump blast furnace, would I find it? Last ditch crusade to find. I don't think I'm gonna find it. It's basically like the excerpt of the book is like Trump saying like, well, I've always thought like this. I've always thought that I've thought like this for like 30 years, that the U.S. just has to make a bunch of stuff locally here, and he just like all of the different sort of economists that were like around him, like not economists, but like the one I don't know if it was like the author guy was around him, but he had like some advisor around him saying like it's like sir, that's just not how that works. Like there's all these like really complicated reasonings for as to why, but if you try to explain all of that to him, he's just gonna fall asleep because there's no fucking pictures, because his brain is soup. So these are all of the ridiculous reasons for as to why, and overly complicated reasons for as to why the tariffs are just not going to bring back manufacturing. They can, but you need to supplement them with some kind of subsidization program. And I know that Trump was like making fun of all the subsidies that Joe Biden was doing through the CHIPS Act, saying like, why are you giving the corporations all this free money? I don't understand why he's doing that. It's because like otherwise they're not going to bring back the jobs back to the US, man. You have to give them the money in order to fucking tell them like, hey, come back. You have to give them incentives, because unfortunately that's how that works. Whoa. I thought like Joe Biden, the fucking communist, quote unquote. Apparently he understands how capitalism fucking works more. It's silly. It's stupid. It's just like it's the most ridiculous nonsense because like again, like I said before, Trump for some reason thinks like the altruistic corporation is a thing when there's just like that's just not a thing. Corporations aren't people. They don't have thoughts or feelings. They have one modus operandi, and that is just to make. They just want to make money. They want to make money. They just want to make money. That's it. It's all about the money in the end. So, this is a spiel I've gone through constantly before, over and over and over again. This is why it's just not going to work, and it's ridiculous and silly that Trump, for whatever reason, thinks that it's going to work this time. It's stupid.